Some assembly required. Welcome back to the shop on the channel for this particular video. So you saw me doing a previous video making parts for this loom, and here it is. Parts are done. What you see here is a single coat of amber shellac to give it a bit of pop color, and then on top of that is Watco hand rub polyurethane. Traditionally I would leave it with the shellac, but just for purposes of keeping it from getting all beat up, I put the polyurethane on to give it a little bit extra strength to the finish. Now what am I doing here? I've got it staged, as you can see, tower uprights. This is the drum for the warp reel, warp drum. This is the stands for the warp drum. I'll get all the terminology right one of these days. And this is the stand for the take-up reel here. And then these little puppies here are what lock up. See that on camera? I mean, you'll see. I'll give you a grand tour when it's done. So this is the pawl and the sprocket that go here for locking up and keeping tension on the lines. Now, what am I going to do? I'm going to glue and draw peg all these parts in. Belt and suspenders. The glue will hold them, but the draw pegging adds just one little extra to the strength of the joint, but also in period, a lot of these things were pegged. And draw pegging is an interesting technique. If you haven't heard of it before, many of you have, I'm going to take out the verticals. I'm going to pre-drill 1/4-inch holes. Then I'm going to put the verticals back in place. And what that does is, and then hit it with this. This is a 1/4-inch transfer punch that I can take and put it through the hole, give it a tap, and it'll leave a mark on the tenon. Now I'm going to drill a hole about 1/16 of an inch or less above that mark. So when the peg goes in place, which is oak, this hole is a little higher than this hole, so it'll draw the piece down into the table. Now I've seen 18th century, 17th century furniture that needed restoration. It was draw pegged together. There was no glue. And you drill them out and they fall apart, and then you draw peg it again. I built a set of doors for a schooner for the forward scuttle, and I didn't use any glue on those. They were louvered doors, and I used draw pegging. And for the rest of the time I was involved with that schooner, they were fine. They never had any looseness or falling apart. So the first thing I want to do is take out the parts that are going to be mounted on the table. Some of these are a little looser than you'd want. Okay, so now I'm going to take and drill the 1/4-inch holes all the way around in all the parts. Mara would also like me to drill 1/4-inch holes through to the, even though these legs are wedged and glued in place, Mara would like to have pegs in these as well. So we're going to do that. So let me get started. Basically, this is all by eye. So it leaves you that illusion, or it is handmade, but gives you the look of something that was truly handmade, because the hole may be slightly off, but that's okay. So I'm going to drill through here across the mortise and into the table. So let's get that done. So what I'm talking about is I put this back in place. Now there's some slough in there. But I put this back in place, as you can see, and then take the punch and drive that in to put the dent onto the tenon. But I got to clean the slough out first. Barely going to make it. There we go. I made it. Now this is on an angle, so I've got to be careful how I do this. Now, of course, these will get cut off, and I'll cut them flush as I can with my flush cutting saw with some tape on here. Then take a chisel to pare off. Will require some touch-up. There's no getting around that. Okay, just turn it around. I'll do the legs later. Slight change as always. I've already done this one. I'm going to be using the drill bit instead of the center. The punch is a 1/4 inch is not always a 1/4 inch. Yeah. So first step is to give this thing, clamp it in place so it's as far in as you possibly can get it. And then take the drill bit, get it in there and give it a tap. You can't see it in camera, but there is a hole right there, little tap, you see it. And I will drill a hole just slightly above that. And that will draw the workpiece down into the tabletop. So let's proceed with that. Voila. And these wedges here, these are specific to each side. So that one goes over here, this one goes over here, this one goes over here. Now, the reason for the wedges is real simple. If you look at these heddles, these are symmetric. They have slots that are next to each other. They're not on top of each other, so you can move the up and down. If you want to change to a different style of heddle, which we can make for any customer, then it's easy to get these heddles out by removing those wedges and taking the top off the towers. My next trick is to glue on, whoops, the other side, glue on the sprockets, and these get pinned with brass, and then this is pretty much done. So let's move on. Yeah. There we go. Well, I got to cut these off, of course. And it is pretty much done. So you see the treadles here that are held up by a piece of string. Leather thong comes up through a mortise here, up over a drum here, and then it allows it to move the heddles up and down, as I demonstrated earlier. Now, the drum is held here, here, I'll bring it close so you can see the details. It's held in by a piece of brass that's nailed in place. So let's go in, let's get a little closer, and I'll show you some of the details. I'm sure if you've seen some of our other videos, you've seen some of the details. Let's go through it again. The front ratchet and pawl, the user sits here, this is the pawl, this is the ratchet, and you'll note there's a piece of brass. That's 1/8" brass rod that goes in at an angle. It goes through the ratchet and into the axle, so it's permanently affixed. And oh, a little bit of CA glue. It's never gonna go anywhere. You can barely see them in camera, but here's the spots where the dowels were set in place for holding the vertical parts in place, and in the back, where the warp drum is, another ratchet and pawl brass piece. And this is called the warp drum. The warp are the threads that go this way. The weft are the threads that go back and forth. So you put your warp threads on here. They go through the heddles, so it can go up and down. And you manually insert the weft across here with your bare hands. Now, as I said, this is the top of the towers. The brass rod. It's held in place with two brass nails, and it's permanent. And that just sits up here. Get the camera up so you can see what I mean, like so. And then the wedges go in here and here to hold it in place for the aforementioned reason of being able to change the heddles whenever you want. Okay, that's it. Mara has to put the leather thongs in, and then this is going to the customer. I think this is maybe fifth or sixth one of these we've made. First one we've made that was a specific kind of wood in which you wanted cherry. Normally they're made of poplar, which is stained. And this has a single coat of amber shellac and then a coat of wipe-on polyurethane. And that's it. It's a satin polyurethane, so it kind of looks kind of period. So this is ready for delivery. We've picked a date in March, later on in March, to drive this up to meet with the new owner and put it in the back of her car so she can go home with it. And that's it for this project. I've got a couple of more lined up for some other things. I'll probably maybe do some video or not. We'll see. But there it is. So until next time, make great things out of wood.